Baalbek, which is located in Lebanon, and I had the great privilege of going there in September of last year, exactly 1 month before things kicked off in Israel.
This is bad news, warned Joe Rogan in a recent discussion about one of the most baffling archaeological enigmas on Earth. His words echoed the feeling many experts have expressed after new revelations about Lebanon's Baalbek.
Baalbek, if there was one example, one ancient site on Earth that is evidence of a lost, ancient, advanced civilization.
For centuries, the site has stood as a colossal riddle, defying logic and sparking countless theories. Now scientists claim they've finally solved the megalithic mystery, but the implications aren't cause for celebration. The world is in shock, not because Baalbek has lost its secrets, but because the truth may reveal something far more unsettling about humanity's past, and possibly its future. Let's take a look. The enigma of Lebanon's Baalbek. Hidden among the mountains of Lebanon lies a site that has perplexed explorers, archaeologists, and engineers for centuries. Baalbek. Unlike most ruins scattered across the ancient world, Baalbek is not defined merely by weathered walls or crumbling temples. Instead, it is anchored by gigantic stones so immense and so precise that they appear almost impossible, even by modern construction standards. These colossal blocks, weighing hundreds, and in some cases, over 1,000 tons, have forced experts to confront a problem that refuses to fade. Who built them, and how? At the center of this mystery are the famous Trilithon stones, 3 massive limestone blocks set into Baalbek's western wall. Each stone measures around 60 feet in length, 14 feet in height, and 12 feet in thickness. Their estimated weight ranges between 750 and 800 tons. To make matters even more confounding, these blocks are not resting on the ground, but elevated roughly 20 feet above it, balanced with such precision that not even a sheet of paper can fit between the joins. For those who first laid eyes on the Trilithon, the impression was immediate. This was not ordinary construction. But the Trilithon is only part of the puzzle. Just outside the main temple complex lies a quarry where even larger stones were cut. Here, archaeologists discovered unfinished blocks that dwarf anything within the temple walls. The most famous, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, stretches more than 65 feet in length and weighs close to 1,000 tons. Later discoveries revealed even larger monoliths, the Stone of the South, estimated at over 1,200 tons, and the so-called Forgotten Stone, measuring nearly 1,500 tons. These unfinished giants suggest ambitions that extended beyond what was physically achievable, even for the most determined workforce. For modern engineers, the questions begin with logistics. How could stones of such scale be transported across uneven terrain? Wooden rollers, pulleys, ramps, and sheer manpower have all been suggested, but none fully explain how blocks of this size could be moved, let alone positioned with flawless accuracy. Even Roman records, which usually boasted about feats of engineering, are strangely silent on Baalbek's megaliths. This silence raises uncomfortable possibilities. Were the stones already in place long before the Romans built their temples on the site? Could Baalbek's origins predate recorded history altogether? From the moment Baalbek's ruins were studied, the site has been described as a marvel of human ingenuity or something beyond it. Some call it proof of forgotten civilizations with knowledge now lost. Others insist it was the product of extreme organization and sheer force of will. What everyone agrees on, however, is that Baalbek does not fit neatly into the timeline of human achievement. It stands as an anomaly, a monument that appears to break the rules of history itself. And this is where the mystery begins to take on an unsettling quality. If the stones of Baalbek represent more than just brilliant engineering, then what do they truly reveal about the civilizations that built them, and why? Stones too big to believe. If the Trilithon alone seems beyond comprehension, the nearby quarry pushes the mystery into even stranger territory. Just 0.5 miles from the main Baalbek complex, massive unfinished blocks remain where ancient builders abandoned them. These are not ordinary construction remnants. They are some of the largest single stones ever cut by human hands, and their sheer scale raises more questions than answers. The most well-known of these is the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It is so massive that modern cranes would struggle to lift it. So how did ancient civilizations with limited technology manage to construct this? Yet it's not just the stone's size that is important. Legends suggest that the stone carried significance beyond its engineering value. Folklore claims that touching it could boost fertility, while other tales describe pregnant jinn or supernatural beings charged with moving it. One story tells of a woman who tricked locals into feeding her by pretending to know the stone's secret. The fact that such myths grew around the block is revealing. It shows that even centuries ago, people looked at Baalbek with the same disbelief we do today. But the pregnant woman is only the beginning. In the 1990s, archaeologists rediscovered another colossal block in the same quarry, now called the Stone of the South. Estimated at 1,242 tons, it dwarfs nearly every stone monument in existence. Then, in 2014, researchers uncovered something even larger: the Forgotten Stone, with a weight close to 1,500 tons. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the combined weight of 3 fully loaded Boeing 747 airplanes carved from solid rock. The logical question is obvious. Why would builders attempt to cut and shape blocks so enormous that even with today's advanced machinery, moving them would be almost impossible? Some suggest the stones were test runs, abandoned once it became clear they were too large to transport. Others believe the ancients may have possessed techniques now lost to us. Either way, the presence of these abandoned giants suggests that Baalbek was never simply about practical construction. It may have been a demonstration of ambition, knowledge, or even ritual significance. Equally puzzling is the precision of the cuts. These blocks were not crudely hacked from the earth, but carefully shaped with straight edges and smooth surfaces, evidence of skilled workmanship. They show that whoever started the task had both the intent and capability to produce architectural marvels on a scale rarely attempted anywhere else in the world. And yet, they were left behind, discarded before they were completed and forgotten about. Were the stones too heavy even for the most ingenious methods available at the time? Were they intentionally oversized, part of an experiment in pushing the limits of construction? Or does their unfinished state point to a sudden halt in the project, an interruption lost to history? What is clear is that the abandoned monoliths add a layer of unease to Baalbek's mystery. The site doesn't just challenge the limits of ancient engineering, it suggests that those limits may have been reached and surpassed. The question lingers: were these colossal stones evidence of the success of an unknown ancient civilization or proof of failure? Whispers of forgotten civilizations. The stones of Baalbek do not stand in isolation. They are layered into a site that has witnessed thousands of years of human activity, from prehistoric settlers to empires that reshaped entire regions. To understand the mystery, you must trace the overlapping civilizations that called this hilltop home, and ask why none left a clear explanation for the megaliths. Archaeological evidence shows that people lived in the area as far back as 9000 BCE. By 3200 BCE, the Phoenicians had established a presence and constructed temples dedicated to their gods, including Astarte and Baal. Beneath the Roman Temple of Jupiter, traces of these earlier sanctuaries still remain. The site's very name, Baalbek, is thought to derive from Baal-nebek, meaning Lord of the Source, possibly referring to a nearby well that made the area sacred. From the beginning, the hilltop carried spiritual weight. When Alexander the Great conquered the region in 334 BCE, he renamed the city Heliopolis, the City of the Sun. Later, under Roman control, Baalbek grew into one of the most grandiose religious complexes in the empire. The Romans fused their god Jupiter with the local Baal, raising massive temples and courtyards to honor this powerful deity. Pilgrims flocked to the site, and towering columns declared its importance to all who entered. But here lies one of the most perplexing details. Roman records say almost nothing about the gigantic foundation stones, the Trilithon and its neighbors. The Romans were prolific chroniclers of their engineering achievements, from aqueducts to amphitheaters, yet they remained silent about Baalbek's megaliths. This omission fuels the suspicion that the stones were already in place long before the Romans arrived. If true, It would suggest that Baalbek's origins stretch back into a shadowy past, beyond recorded history. Over time, the site shifted with the tides of culture and belief. When Christianity spread through the empire, pagan altars were dismantled, and temples were converted into churches. Later, under Islamic rule, the complex became a fortress known as Qalat Baalbek, a citadel strengthened by successive dynasties. Each era left its mark, layering new stone over old foundations. Yet through all these changes, the megaliths remained untouched, too massive to move, too mysterious to ignore. What emerges from this timeline is not a single origin story, but a palimpsest of civilizations, each adapting the site without ever explaining its foundation. The Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, Christians, and Muslims all recognized Baalbek's significance, but none claimed credit for the stones that define it. This silence is unsettling. It hints that Baalbek's megaliths may not belong to any known culture, but to an earlier chapter of humanity that has since been forgotten. If so, then the mystery is not only about how the stones were moved, but who first decided to raise them and why their story has vanished from history. With this huge gap in our knowledge, we are left to guess as to how the monuments were constructed. Theories that tried to explain it. For centuries, the question of how Baalbek's colossal stones were moved has inspired competing theories. Some are grounded in engineering, others in speculation. Yet none fully account for the scale of the task. The stones remain stubbornly resistant to explanation, forcing archaeologists and engineers alike to grapple with the limits of human ingenuity. The most traditional explanation involves wooden rollers and ramps. In theory, workers could have placed the stones on cylindrical logs and rolled them across the ground. Ramps would then be used to elevate them into position. On paper, this method seems simple enough, but experimental archaeology has shown its flaws. When replicas of smaller megaliths were moved in this way, sledges slipped, rollers jammed, and stones veered off course. The uneven terrain between the quarry and the temple site at Baalbek makes this method seem implausible on such a scale. The Romans' reputation for advanced engineering has also been invoked. Their cranes, capstans, and pulley systems were marvels of their time. The polyspastos, a crane with multiple pulleys, could lift up to 13,000 pounds, an extraordinary achievement. But Baalbek's largest blocks weigh over 150 times that. Even with lifting towers and tread wheels, the numbers don't add up. The Romans may have excelled at moving stones for aqueducts and amphitheaters, but the megaliths of Baalbek far exceed their documented capacities. Another theory suggests manpower alone. Ancient depictions from Egypt show hundreds of men hauling statues across the desert, using ropes, sledges, and water to reduce friction. Scaled up, some researchers argue, thousands of workers could have dragged the stones to their resting place. But estimates vary wildly. Some calculations suggest 500 men could move a 500-ton block. Others claim 40,000 would be required for Baalbek's largest stones. Even if the manpower was available, organizing such efforts across uneven terrain seems almost insurmountable. A different idea suggests that the stones were never moved at all. Instead, they were quarried and shaped in place, with the temple complex designed around them. While this explains the logistical challenge, it raises another problem. Why were some blocks left unfinished in the quarry, as if the work was abruptly halted? If on-site quarrying was the solution, the abandoned giants remain unexplained. The persistence of these theories reveals a deeper issue. Each method offers partial answers but falls short when applied to the full scale of Baalbek. Wooden rollers work in theory, but not in practice. Roman cranes were powerful but insufficient. Manpower was abundant but logistically improbable. Quarrying on site explains some stones but not others. And so the mystery endures. If the conventional explanations fail, what does that imply about the builders? Did they possess methods lost to history, or were they attempting the impossible and failing before our eyes? The lack of certainty is what makes Baalbek so unsettling. It refuses to fit into any neat box of human achievement. Science steps in. Modern excavations. For most of history, Baalbek's mystery was left to speculation. Legends, folklore, and theories filled the gaps. But in the last century, science has stepped in, bringing careful excavation, documentation, and analysis to the site. What researchers found did not resolve the enigma, it deepened it. Each discovery added more complexity, revealing that Baalbek is not just a marvel of stone, but a crossroads of civilizations stretching back thousands of years. The first serious scientific push began in 1898, when Germany's Emperor Wilhelm II visited Baalbek. His interest sparked a wave of excavations led by German archaeologists, which continued until 1904. These early digs exposed foundations, structures, and even architectural blueprints carved into the stone itself. Far from being a random jumble of ruins, Baalbek revealed itself as an intricately planned complex, with precise floor plans etched directly into the site at scales accurate enough to rival modern drafts. Recognition of the site's importance grew steadily. In 1984, UNESCO declared Baalbek a World Heritage Site, ensuring its preservation and global attention. But the most revealing work came later, when the German Archaeological Institute partnered with the Lebanese University in 2004. Their collaboration focused on the ancient quarries and uncovered evidence stretching Baalbek's timeline even further back. Among their finds were Persian pottery fragments marked with cuneiform writing, dating between the 6th and 4th centuries BCE. More startling still, excavation beneath the Temple of Jupiter suggested human presence at the site going all the way back to the Neolithic period. Baalbek was no longer just a Roman showpiece. It was a settlement with roots from thousands of years before the Roman era. Scientists also analyzed the megaliths themselves, studying how they were cut and shaped. Researcher Margaret van Es concluded that the stones were quarried along natural fissures in the rock, a technique clever enough to reduce breakage and allow for massive blocks to be extracted intact. This method appeared elsewhere in Roman projects, like the Pont de Gare aqueduct in France, linking Baalbek to broader construction traditions. Yet even this didn't explain why some blocks were cut on such an extraordinary scale that moving them was practically impossible. In 2014, archaeologists uncovered the so-called forgotten stone still lying in the quarry. It confirmed suspicions that the builders had reached limits they could not overcome. Why would they attempt a block so massive if it could never be moved? Was it miscalculation, overconfidence, or something more deliberate? The discovery reignited debate and pushed Baalbek back into headlines worldwide. Even the architectural style of Baalbek has raised questions. Detailed analysis of Podium 1, the foundation beneath the Temple of Jupiter, showed striking similarities to Herodian construction in Jerusalem. The alternating rows of headers and stretchers, the drafted margins, even the course heights matched almost exactly. Was this a coincidence, or evidence of a shared workforce or tradition connecting two monumental sites? The overlap is difficult to dismiss. Taken together, these modern excavations paint a picture that is both richer and more troubling. Baalbek is no longer just a Roman temple or a Phoenician sanctuary. It is a site of deep continuity, occupied and reshaped across millennia, but with foundations that defy easy attribution. The deeper science digs, the more it suggests Baalbek's origins lie in a forgotten chapter of history, one where ambition, engineering, and mystery collided on a scale still unmatched today. Cracks in the official story. The conventional explanations for Baalbek, clever quarrying, Roman ingenuity, and sheer manpower, began to show cracks as discoveries piled up. The story no longer fit as neatly as textbooks suggested. Instead of solving the mystery, science exposed unsettling contradictions. The abandoned monoliths in the quarry are perhaps the clearest example. The forgotten stone is too large to have been transported by any known method. If the Romans or their predecessors had perfected techniques to move such blocks, why was it left behind? Equally troubling are the stylistic overlaps with other ancient sites. The similarities between Baalbek's Podium 1 and Herodian architecture in Jerusalem suggest a shared tradition or workforce, yet no records connect the two. Instead of clarifying Baalbek's origins, the parallels complicate them, hinting at networks of builders whose skills and failures have vanished from written history. Even the silence of Roman accounts casts doubt. The empire proudly documented feats of engineering across Europe and the Middle East. But on Baalbek's enormous stones, the record is blank. This absence raises questions no amount of archaeology has answered. If the Romans were responsible, why not claim credit? And if they weren't, who was? Modern engineers add to the unease. Their assessment suggests that even today, moving Baalbek's largest blocks would push the limits of available technology. Cranes, transporters, and heavy machinery could handle smaller stones, but the monoliths in Baalbek's quarry would remain a logistical nightmare. That realization reframes the problem. Either ancient builders knew something we do not, or they reached the same dead end that modern methods reveal. This shift in perspective is what unsettles researchers most. Baalbek is not only a story of human ingenuity, it may also be a story of failure. The megaliths that stand proudly in the temple walls inspire awe, but the ones left behind whisper of a project too ambitious to finish. In that contradiction lies a deeper mystery, one that suggests humanity's greatest monuments may also conceal its greatest mistakes. And this is where the tone of discovery begins to darken. If Baalbek is evidence not of triumph but of collapse, then its megaliths are more than ancient relics. They may be warnings carved in stone, reminders that even the most advanced societies can push too far and fail. When the truth emerged. For generations, Baalbek's mystery inspired grand theories of superhuman strength, forgotten civilizations, and even extraterrestrial builders. But recent scientific consensus has reached a conclusion that solves the mystery of this megalithic monument. And while it's less sensational than other theories, it is deeply unsettling. The stones were not placed by forces beyond imagination. They were the product of human ambition that ultimately exceeded human capability. Evidence points to a simple but sobering reality. Many of Baalbek's largest stones were cut too big to move. The colossal blocks left in the quarry, including the 1,650-ton forgotten stone, are not signs of advanced technology, but of miscalculation. Ancient builders pushed the limits of their engineering and discovered those limits the hard way. They could carve the blocks with precision, but they could not transport them. The project was abandoned mid-stride, leaving a permanent record of failure embedded in the landscape. This conclusion reframes Baalbek entirely. Instead of a monument to lost knowledge or supernatural intervention, it becomes a case study in human overreach. The world is in shock, not because the stones reveal alien secrets, but because they expose a more grounded truth. Even the most ambitious civilizations can falter. The image of invincible builders mastering impossible weights collapses into a reminder that mistakes, even at monumental scales, have always been part of human history. The implications ripple outward. If Baalbek is evidence of ambition cut short, then history is not a smooth arc of progress, but a cycle of experimentation, achievement, and failure. The ancients were not vastly superior or inferior to us. They were human, working with the tools and knowledge available, sometimes succeeding spectacularly and sometimes falling short. The mystery is not how they moved the stones, but why they thought they could move them in the first place. And this is why the solution is not good news. The megaliths no longer stand as proof of forgotten genius, but as monuments to overconfidence. They show us that human ambition can exceed human limits, with results that endure for millennia. For anyone hoping Baalbek would unlock secrets of hidden civilizations, the truth feels smaller but more sobering. The mystery surrounding Lebanon's Baalbek megalithic monuments has been solved, and what it tells us is not uplifting. It is a warning written in stone. Why Baalbek still haunts us. Baalbek remains one of the world's most extraordinary archaeological sites, not because of what we now know, but because of what we still don't. The solution to its megalithic mystery strips away some of the grandeur, yet replaces it with something equally powerful. A stark reminder of human ambition and limitation. These stones are not just artifacts, they are silent witnesses to both extraordinary ingenuity and unfulfilled plans. The myths of gods, giants, or extraterrestrials may be fading in light of scientific explanations, but the awe persists. Standing before the Trilithon or gazing at the abandoned quarry blocks, it is impossible not to feel both admiration and unease. Baalbek is proof that history is complicated, that progress is not always straightforward, and that some mysteries, even when solved, carry unsettling truths. The world is in shock, not because Baalbek's builders were superhuman, but because they were all too human. Their attempt to move mountains failed, leaving behind a monument that testifies as much to human limits as to human genius. It is a legacy both inspiring and sobering. Do you think Baalbek's unfinished stones are a reminder of what humanity has already lost, or a warning of what we might repeat? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.